Dorian Blake, a brilliant but eccentric book hunter and self-confessed bibliomaniac, heads the small firm Blake & Associates Literary Investigations in San Francisco. From their loft-style office on Clementina Street, Dorian and his teammates track missing manuscripts, authenticate dubious discoveries, and navigate a shadow world of collectors, auction sharks, and occult bibliophiles. Each case is a mystery whose solution hinges on deep book lore, forensic bibliography, and treacherous human motives. The Bleeding Edge. Prologue. Proof of ink. The auctioneer's voice rippled through the live stream like a brushed velvet gavel. Lot OX1A, gentlemen and gentlewomen, Leaves of Grass, broadsheet edition, 1855, with integral specimen of the original binding cloth. First printing, uncut. Fully tied-inked to a non-fungible token on the vault ledger chain. Physical custody in nitrogen vault. Digital title in perpetuity. Bidding opens at $8 million, or the fiat equivalent in lumen-backed stablecoin. Spotlights caressed the solemn rectangle of paper sealed in lucite. The room smelled of cedar polish and warm servers. Half the audience wore Savile Row, the other half hoodies emblazoned with Dio sigils. At a private skybox above them, Tristan Rourke raised a flute of non-alcoholic champagne and whispered the brand slogan. To himself first, then to his influencer's lenses. Proof of ink, he intoned, the convergence of originary matter and immutable ledger. Tamper with the book, and the chain itself fights back. A gilded animation on the venue's hollow monolith illustrated the threat. Try to excise a leaf. The embedded NFC coil sensed the strain, relayed a distress hash, and a murderous clause inside the smart contract sent SIG kill to the NFT. The digital deed would self-immolate, vaporizing the $27 million in Tangelo coin that Rourke's VC cabal had staked as collateral. Visionary protection, or bibliophilic blasphemy, depending on which podcast you believed. On crypto Twitter, the forks had already begun. A zealot posted, "Trug dead poets, keep receipts." An antiquarian shot back, "Books are for reading, not staking." Amid the roar of block-confirmed bids, a quieter post materialized. Nullkit / bleed. Life bleeds. Ledgers bleed. See you all at block height 999,999. No one noticed. No one, that is, except a librarian who collected ravens instead of followers. 1. Flash freeze. San Francisco, 2:17 a.m. The 36th floor of Terra Firma Tower, Rourke's mirrored penthouse, slept behind biometric glass. 2 stories below, a cold room the size of a wine cellar canted 15 degrees into bedrock. Liquid nitrogen coursed through stainless veins, bathing 15 vacuum pods in minus 196 degrees Celsius gloom. At 2:17 and 8 seconds, pod number 001 flashed red on the security dashboard. At 2:17:11, every lens in the vault swiveled 90 degrees and stared at its own reflection, as though embarrassed. At 2:17:14, the Leaves of Grass NFT detached from the mainnet and spun into a rogue branch, taking with it the smart contract's poison pill. A timer, white, pitiless numerals, counted down 300 seconds. Tristan Rourke rocketed from deep sleep, pajama bottoms tangling like seaweed around his calves. He slapped at holographic widgets until the AI assistant, Mergenthaler, projected the forensics. A single IP tunneling through the interplanetary file system, handle nullkit / bleed. Data packets skip between relays as if playing hopscotch on invisible sidewalks. The console blinked, went black, and resurrected as a ransom note in blood-red monospace. Your book for your coin. Bring the physical edition to Sutro Tower service deck. Midnight, alone, or the fork stays bleeding. Behind that message pulsed the NFT's bifurcated hash, arterial red streaking into healthy green. Not merely a theft, an existential split. Rourke checked the remaining seconds. 271. He screamed in entrepreneurial, throat-scouring panic. 2. Briefing at Blake and Associates. At 10 on the same morning, Dorian Blake unlocked the side door of a converted cannery loft in Dogpatch. The industrial skylight gave up reluctant shafts of maritime sun, illuminating bookshelves arranged like chess rooks around a reclaimed oak table. The loft smelled of bergamot and apparently stale solder. Leo Salgado had spent the all-nighter soldering a Faraday cradle for antique handheld scanners. Tristan Rourke arrived with 2 bodyguards who looked as if they'd been printed by the same 3D biomass press. He waved them outside. Digital confidentiality, then slapped a hollow chart onto the oak. Double helix chains, 1 green, 1 red, knotted across the display. Midnight, he said. If I don't hand over the physical copy, they broadcast a destructive commit. 27 million held hostage. And, he jabbed an icon of a burning book, Walt Whitman goes confetti. Meera Patel leaned closer, hair tucked under a bandana mottled with chemical spatter. A smart contract kill pill is elegant only in PowerPoint, she said. In real life, it's bibliocide. Clara Havelock unfolded from a window ledge. Null kit usually just exfiltrates and auctions data. This is analog leverage. Rourke massaged his beard, cut to the millimeter by a robot barber. My board wants Blake and Associates because you're the people who catch books on fire so no one else can. That was one time, Blake murmured. At the far end, Leo flicked holograms like playing cards, tracing nullkit //bleed across exit nodes. They left a tag in the ransom code, bleeding edge V0.9. The 0.9 means beta. They think this is a trial run. Blake's gaze locked on one bead of the chain's red drift. Its timestamp matched the last time Vespasian Crow had texted him a single quip. Truth is an open-source virus, friend. He said aloud, where rare books and digital ghosts intertwine, Crow writes footnotes. Rourke flinched as though hearing a summoning spell. Crow is a myth. I want results. Your fee doubles if that man isn't part of the storyboard. 3. Version control, inside the vault. Permission keys alone would not open the nitrogen vault. It required a retina scan, a voice print reciting the ISBN, and, in a moment of Rourke's hubris, a taste spectrum analysis of a sip of Pappy Van Winkle, 23-year. Clara Havelock bypassed the trifecta by replaying recorded biometrics through a sliver of biosynthetic gel and a subharmonic speaker that mimicked Rourke's timbre. The sarcophagus emerged on a servo arm, the book nested like a sleeping baby under transparent polymer older than most ICOs. Meera greeted it like an old friend, her nose flaring. Oxidized lignin, dried violets, trace of brass polish, and, Rourke, did you really fumigate this thing with ozone? Barbarian. Embedded beneath the backboard lay the coil, its latticed copper poised like mandibles around a microcharge of acid microcapsules. Leo's AR specs overlaid the coil's firmware. Tripwire plus hardware kill pill, romantic if you're dating a shredder. Psychotic, Meera corrected, and proceeded to map the binding geometry down to the crumb of binder's paste. Every dimension fed into a 1 terabyte photogrammetry rig. Within 30 minutes, she could print a phantom that fooled all but the most vicious microscope, and Nullkit likely didn't plan to field one atop Sutro Tower. Yet the fog of a question lingered. Why demand the physical copy if destroying the NFT would free up the collateral anyway? Blake's mind chased that riddle even as the servo slid Pod 001 back into sub-zero slumber. 4. Forklift, the Pier 96 decoy. A breadcrumb from Leo pinballed between 6 data havens and finally staked a red flag on a warehouse at Pier 96, abandoned except for drone nests and the smell of maritime diesel. The team split 3 ways. Clara rappelled through a skylight, landing noiselessly between dusty crates. Blake and Mira walked past a rusted sign, Pier 96 Ship Chandlery, brandishing an Interpol letter that Russo had conjured in case local police got curious. Inside, warehouse stillness, punctured only by fans cooling a wall of monitors. Each monitor streamed a different angle of leaves of grass inside Pod 001. Leo's bangs snapped upward in surprise. They're showing us our own CCTV, but routed through a lag that lets them edit. On the floor sat a toy forklift, the kind gifted in Christmas crackers, its tiny plastic fork supporting a rolled parchment. Leo unrolled it. You fork, we lift. Beneath, a QR code resolved into GPS coordinates at Sutro Tower. Timestamp, 30 seconds before they breach the pier. They debug our future before we compile it, Mira murmured. Blake felt the air shift, a librarian's intuition. A raven graffitied in ASCI flickered upon the corrugated wall. Beneath, null kit codes. Rourke bleeds. Blake decides. Clara pulled her sidearm. The raven evaporated. Someone was scribing footnotes in real time. 5. Enter Crow. Rain iced the windshield as the SUV slid back toward Dogpatch. Blake's phone bloomed with an encrypted pop-up. From Crow's Nest. There's poetry in bleed codes. Midnight is merely an index. VC. Blake's skin prickled. Vespasian Crow had once been his mentor at Oxford, keeper of rare books, a lover of footnotes, until he walked out with half the Bodleian's incunabula digitized and posted under Creative Commons. Crow argued piracy was the highest form of preservation. Blake called it hubris. Their last meeting ended in a fistfight in the shadow of the Sheldonian Theatre, ink from a toppled inkwell saturating both men's collars like spilled blood. Clara watched Blake's jaw tighten. If Crow's in, we play four-dimensional chess. How many pawns are we willing to sacrifice? Leaves of Grass isn't a pawn, Blake answered. It's the board itself. 6. Dr. Borman's Paradox. Inspector Valentina Russo arrived at the loft with the brisk cadence of Interpol bullet points. One Dr. Aisha Borman, 39, cryptographer, vanished from UC Berkeley 3 nights ago. Her research, anti-fork consensus for post-quantum ledgers. The grant was EU-funded. Her last GPS ping. Russo pinned a photo on the wall. Pier 96. Leo cracked Borman's Git repo behind a VPN triple-wrapped in onion layers. He whistled. See this branch? Bleeding Edge V 1.0? It's line identical to the exploit nullkit used. She wrote an antidote, but they inverted it into a siphon. Mira's fingers danced across a separate display, correlating chemical purchases. Borman also ordered a kilogram of fullerenes and boron nitride nanotubes, perfect for quantum-resistant anti-spoofing tags. Nullkit wanted her brain. They requisitioned the rest by kidnapping the original. Blake exhaled. Our ransom is a 3-body problem. The book, the coin, and the cryptographer. Let's add a 4th, Crow's motives. 7. Side plot, The Long Day. 7.1 Leo versus Nullkit, cyberspace. While Mira began forging a facsimile, Leo sparred in a private IRC with a Nullkit avatar, Dodo at Nullkit. The Dodo spoke in riddles. Extinction is proof of scarcity. Scarcity is proof of value. Value is proof of leverage. Leo countered with asymptotic curves and memes of grinning pangolins. Beneath the banter, Leo infected the chat server with a spider that catalogued Nullkit handles. 3 emerged as active in San Francisco, 2 in Reykjavik, 1 in Lagos. A decentralized heist, yet the chat timestamps revealed a single coordinator, colibri, Swedish for hummingbird. 7.2 Mira's visitation. Between spectroscopic prints, Mira visited her retired father at Pacific Heights nursing. Left brain ravaged by a stroke, he could still recite lines of Whitman aloud. She played him a recording of Song of Myself, his eyes watering when the poem spoke of the press of my foot to the earth. A younger mirror had first smelled foxed paper and grass after rain in this same poem. Saving Whitman felt suddenly personal. Nulkit's threat was a scalpel at childhood marrow. 7.3 Rourke's boardroom coup. While Blake's team labored, Rourke faced a different enemy, his own investors. On a hyperglass dais overlooking the bay, the Vault Ledger Board threatened to freeze his voting shares unless he neutralized liability. One director suggested burning the book preemptively and claiming insurance. Rourke's knuckles whitened. Proof of ink cannot start with ash, he said, and found himself one vote shy of expulsion. Midnight now carried not just cryptographic doom, but corporate decapitation. 8. Midnight Plan, architecture of a sting. Counterfeit. Mira hydrogel-printed rag cotton sheets aged them with controlled UV and a proprietary fungal mist that whispered gold into the paper's pores. She reproduced wormholes by luring actual book lice over the leaves with pheromone glaze, then freeze-killing them mid-nibble. NFC coil, replaced with a dummy copper helix attached to a listening chip, a Trojan ear. Counter-exploit. Leo injected a 216-byte payload, whose only job was to reverse worm the Nulkit fork the nanosecond it sniffed the counterfeit coil. On success, it would auto-push Borman's legit anti-fork code back to both branches, merging them and neutering the kill switch. Perimeter. Clara choreographed a rooftop ballet. SFPD TAC team in ghost mode at tower footings. She herself would monkey line down utility cables 4 minutes before midnight. Valentina Russo commandeered city grid cameras, converting San Francisco into a living panopticon. Role play, Blake would bear the facsimile in an archival briefcase. The briefcase housed a second Trojan, an EMP burst scaled to 1 foot radius, enough to fry Nulkit's portable scanners after they authenticated the book, but not before Leo's payload executed. Rourke, banned from the operation, cursed Blake in 6-figure legal threats. Blake replied in Shakespeare, "Cry havoc, and let slip the books of law." 9. Switchboard, the Sutro Exchange. Midnight -10. Fog wrapped Sutro Tower's trusses like borrowed muslin. Updrafts moaned through steel lattice, each gust testing the nerve of climbers and cables. Blake's boots clanged on service stairs. Echelon lights blinked amber overhead. In the control shed, Leo's rig piggybacked the tower's microwave links, each antenna a drumhead in his digital kit. The deck emerged, a catwalk of rusted grating cantilevered above cloud. A lone figure waited, wearing an LED mask cycling through extinct animal emojis: thylacine, moa, quagga. Voice, genderless, spectrum shifted. Code first, book later. Blake placed the briefcase on a stainless steel bench. Nulkit, call him thylacine, offered a dongle. He slotted it into the coil. LED turned green. Thylacine asked, "Publish a slug on page 95? Blake recited, "Fowlers and Wells, Clinton Hall, New York." The counterfeit passed. A second Nulkit avatar, Moa, stepped from shadow with a culinary torch, pointing it at the folio's edge. Insurance. Mira's paper would singe in period authentic hue. Then the tower floodlights blazed. A third actor entered, coat billowing like a Victorian dust jacket. Vespasian Crow's face was half in silhouette, half too much in focus, eyes like wet ink. "The test was mine," he informed the null avatars, who bristled. "You," Blake said, feeling years collapse between them. Crow bowed but kept a wary angle. "Nulkit wants a guarantee. I supply it. Give them this." He brandished a USB drive. "And your cryptographer lives. I'm the escrow nobody hired." Blake's throat constricted. Why broker for terrorists? Crow's smile. Because Rourke's NFT is a noose around cultural necks. Kill the patent. Free the books. Below, Tower Spectrum erupted with competing sign-ons. Nulkit nodes, SFPD routers, Leo's counter-exploit. Bandwidth screamed. Thylacine pressed a knife to the book's spine. Upload. Now. Crow tossed the USB. Blake caught it, palms sweating. He read the label. Borman merge patch.dlal plus penned italic note, double fork / double freedom. Could Crow be trusted? Memory answered with bruises and broken quills. Number. But trust wasn't the currency tonight. Time was. Blake slotted the USB. A progress bar crawled. 71%, 82%, 100%. Nullkit's mask cycled to a smiling dodo. 10. Hostage reveal and tower heist. The deck's big screen flickered to life. Dr. Isha Borman gagged, seated before a server rack festooned with C4 bricks. Red LED timers mirrored the NFT's bleed clock. Nullkit's digital chorus intoned from tower speakers. Verify paper. Then she walks. Moa flicked the torch. A corner of page 13 browned perfectly. Nullkit gestured, satisfied. EMP burst, Leo's failsafe, was keyed to Blake's heart rate, reaching 130 beats per minute. Clara's strap readout showed 129. Then Moa's knife slit deeper, hitting the coil. The copper helix popped free, revealing it was not the original. Moa snarled. Timer on Borman surged from 12 minutes to 1. Heart rate 130. Blake flicked a toggle inside the briefcase handle. A localized pulse zapped. Nullkit scanners died, tower CCTV glitched, even nearby LEDs blew out like candles in hurricane wind. But Nullkit had contingency. Thylacine triggered a drone swarm, 20 microcopters lifted from vents, each carrying a sub-kilogram charge pointed at structural joints. Clara repelled from overhead strut, double-tap-tacing Moa. Blake bear-hugged Thylacine off the catwalk. They slammed onto a girder 1 level down. Crow? Already mid-stride to the north mast, typing on a wrist console. Leo's headset burst with static and Latin quatrains. Crow's cipher overlay. The librarian was rewriting the merge patch in flight. Russo's TAC team breached tower base, but drones blocked stair lips, detonating microcharges to collapse sections and stall pursuit. Blake pinned Thylacine. The mask canted. Inside, a teenager, maybe 19, tears mixing with fog. We just wanted to bankrupt the NFTs, he stammered. Crow said, but a stun dart from somewhere pricked his neck, silencing the confession. Clara radioed, C4 location triangulated to Pier 96. Russo dispatched. In earpiece, Borman murmured courtesy of Leo's decrypted feed. They gave me a choice, build the fork or watch them torch the poetry. Leo, voice ragged. Executing counter-exploit now. In the radio-saturated dark, a blossom of numbers cascaded back to green. The NFT's rogue branch curled inward, suturing to mainnet. Kill switch entry toggled from true to obsolete. Timer on C4 snapped to 0, 00005, 000004, then froze. Silence. Global silence, as though every data center paused to read a poem. 11. Twist gears. Sirens approached Sutro. Clara cuffed the unconscious Thylacine. Mira retrieved the facsimile, surprisingly intact. Russo's TAC team secured a sense. Crow reappeared beside Blake, perched like a magpie on a narrow rail over 200 feet of nothing. Fun footnote, he said. My USB did carry Borman's merge patch, as promised, but nested inside. A second payload. It just filed to the USPTO, in our collective names, a declaration invalidating Rourke's proof of ink patents as prior art. Public domain by sunrise. Think of it as open source revenge. Blake's muscles yearned to hurl the man from the tower, but the day had no appetite for added corpses. You weaponized our rescue. Crow's shrug. Restoration through sabotage. Sometimes the book must bleed so the readers heal. Helicopter lights swept. Crow tipped an imaginary hat and stepped backward off the rail, really stepped off, snagging a rappel line that whisked him into edible fog. The raven emblem phosphoresced on the side of the coffin-grey sky. 12. Aftermath. Kale 6:12 Vault Ledger's trading desk woke to a tsunami of sell orders. With its proprietary lock open-sourced by Crow's filing, proof of ink coins halved in value before breakfast. Rourke watched from his penthouse, tie askew, while journalists queued for sound bites. He offered none. Interpol charged 3 null-kit teens, San Fran locals, on conspiracy counts. The Lagos and Reykjavik nodes went dark, their operators presumably slipping into new handles. Dr. Aisha Borman held a press conference alongside Russo. She announced Libre Ledger, an anti-fork, quantum-resistant protocol licensed under AGPL. When asked her motive, she quoted Whitman. "I am large, I contain multitudes." Mira delivered the real leaves of grass, still sleeping inside Pod 001, to the Bancroft Library for neutral stewardship. Without a proprietary coil, its survival rested on classical conservation, not code. Blake faced internal affairs, Russo playfully grilling him on cooperating with a known fugitive. He pleaded necessity. She marked grey area in her report. "Next time you tango with Crow," she said, "invite me to cut in." Leo updated Blake's server with a final commit message. Fix, merge, bleed, add poetry. Clara placed the counterfeit on the office mantel, a trophy to future forgeries. "Paper beats code," she quipped. "Unless code burns paper," Mira countered. "For now," Blake said, "let's call it checkmate by stalemate." Epilogue. Fork in the fog. Lisbon, 3 weeks later. Bonded warehouses near the Alfama district still smelled of salt and cinnamon. Vespasian Crow sipped espresso so dark it shone like wet obsidian. Headlines scrolled across his tablet. Vault Ledger patents vacated, book-backed NFT market craters. Crow's thumb caressed a fresh token, hand-drawn raven stamped on rag cotton circa 1855. No smart contract, no coil, just graphite and paper, backed by nothing but human touch. He slid the token into Volume 1 of Os Luciadas, shut the cover, and whispered, "Ledger or no, the book abides." Above the Tagus River, foghorns mooed like ancient beasts. Somewhere in that grey interstice, a librarian's revenge kept writing itself, one liberated footnote at a time.